Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny. Sometimes Colorado, sometimes Wyoming. Back in the office. Had a lovely dinner last night with Congressman Crank down in the Springs. Just going through talking to all those Congress critters and having a great time learning about their needs and talking about cryptocurrency business. And now that I'm back here, wanted to announce something that you guys can work on throughout the year, and we'll have some prizes come Rare Evo. So I got to thinking, what would be the ultimate dashboard to track for the Cardano ecosystem? We have things, and let me show my screen real quickly here. Wow. So we have like ADA stats, for example, and they kind of have a dashboard and they talk about price and market cap and pools with stake and holders and circulating supply and total stake and transactions per epoch and all these types of things. And they can drill in a little bit. You got some DREP statistics, like 834 of them, and amount of delegators, amongst other things. You got EUTXO. Oh, come on now. You need to load there. Come on, Billy. You can do it. So while that's loading, you got Tap Tools, talks about all the various tokens and what's going on in Cardano land. But, oop, let's see if it shows me. There we go. So you got UUTXO, shows the blocks real time. Got some stats right here. Discover interesting transactions blocks, the mempool, all kinds of stuff. But what we don't have is a dashboard of things that we consider as an ecosystem KPIs. You see, now that there's decentralized governance, there's a natural question to ask of what should we track? And I got a list of things here that we track and we think about. So there's TVL, DeFi TVL, transactions and active addresses, code commits, GitHub commits. You can take a look at dApps, dApp volume, contracts, community governance statistics, decentralization consensus. You look at blockchain size. Cardano is about 186 gigabytes in size. Bitcoin's about 640. Solana, for comparison, is 300 terabytes, if not larger. In fact, the active state of Solana is 200 gigabytes, just to give you a sense of that. Cost about $25,000 a month to run a Solana node. How much does it cost to run a stake pool per month in Cardano? There are thousands of different ways that you can chop up and look at Cardano as an ecosystem. And the point is, we absolutely need, as an ecosystem, to come together and develop one dashboard that we consider to be the mother of all dashboards that we use and track for core KPIs of the Cardano ecosystem. Why? Because your Congress critters, your DREPs, and constitutional committee members on an annual basis are accountable for making those dashboard numbers go up, make them better, make things look better inside the ecosystem. Well, if we don't measure it, how can we know that things are improving? And if we don't measure it, how can we know when we have a roadmap and a budget what is relevant to what? For example, we could track TPS, kind of hard to measure, but we could track that. And we'd say, well, the mad dash towards Laos, we think will improve the situation by this rough order of magnitude, as an example. We could track budget outflows and say, we think this will improve TVL. We could track stablecoin TVL. And we could say, okay, well, we think this budget action with the treasury will improve the amount of stablecoin in circulation on Cardano. You track it, then you can improve it. So here's my announcement. I would like for the ecosystem to get together and create a whole bunch of demos of candidate dashboards, find the data sources, or and elaborate the story of how difficult it was to aggregate it and what could make it easier. And then we'll have contest and Rare Evo and a prize for the winner. We'll put all the details together and figure out what's appropriate for it, but something probably in the 5 figures range, 6 figures range. We just have to figure out how to do all the T's and cross the T's and dot the I's on the terms and conditions. But it would be nice to basically have teams of people think about this problem, bring it together, and I suspect the people in the analytics business, the Zerberuses and the Ada Stats and the others will take a crack at it. But then the goal would be for this to become the canonical tracking dashboard of ecosystem metrics that we all agree on as an ecosystem are important. And then you hold your D reps accountable for it, and you hold all of the institutions that are making things better accountable for it. And then we can have a very fact-based, KPI-driven pursuit. The other advantage is when we talk about marketing Cardano, when you talk about quarter after quarter progress, when people say we're a ghost chain and there's no dApps and we've achieved nothing, then you have a dashboard to refer to, and you can show quarter after quarter the improvement of core KPIs. And then you can take them on a journey and say, do these things matter to you? And if they say, well, yes, they do, you say, well, they're improving quarter after quarter. They're moving in the right direction. We seem to be a healthy, vibrant, growing project. Isn't that what matters? And if they say, no, 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 you're not number one and therefore you're bad, you say, but the trends are looking good. And if you extrapolate over time, we will eventually beat these guys. And so you can really determine if there's good faith but ignorance versus they're a shill and there's no good faith inside the argument. They also may disagree on the KPIs that we set. And then at least we understand each other. Because, for example, if the only KPI they care of is, let's say, price, and the price has been flat, but all the other statistics are looking amazing, and they say Cardano's made no progress. Well, in their mind, maybe that's true. And if that's their only KPI that matters, at least we understand each other. Instead of saying you're a bad person and they say you're a bad person, we need to agree on a common reference frame for everybody to be there. And what's nice is then we can have a community-wide conversation about what is required to improve each of these KPIs. Now, as I said, we have internal ones that we track, and the roadmap that was proposed with Intersect and IO uh, we think will improve the state of affairs. And really, the three things I tend to think about is does it make your life easier as a user? So, in some way, make it easier to use Cardano. Does it make a dApp developer, somebody building on Cardano's life easier? Better, faster, cheaper, better workflows, easier integrations, et cetera, et cetera. And the third one is, does it improve liquidity, interconnectivity, and overall standing of Cardano? So those are kind of the three categories that I tend to think about. So we look at Laos, it makes everybody's life better and it makes a more attractive development platform. So it hits all three categories. You get faster finality, you get a higher TPS rate, you clean up a lot of garbage along the way, so it's easier to integrate with the chain, et cetera, et cetera. When you look at other things like programming language improvements, they tend not to matter for the end user, but they sure as hell matter for the dApp developer who has to spend quite a bit of money and time wrangling things. So Aiken, for example, massively improved the state of affairs for many people in the ecosystem. And so that was a good investment and a very high return investment for the ecosystem as a whole. It also allowed Plutus to turn slowly into a high assurance language, and it allowed people to further differentiate what they need and when they need it. Great. So wallet improvements are in that first category. Does it make the user's life easier? So things like SIP30, the new multi-sig standard we're working on, and a whole bunch of things to make the wallets easier to work with and use. Wallet standards, these things, they make Cardano more fluid and ultimately a better experience for people. And it's right where the action is. It's in the browser, it's on the cell phone, this type of stuff. Improve the liquidity. That can be growth hacking, marketing, exchange listings, these types of things. So those are kind of categories I look at. I'd like to combine those categories with a KPI dashboard, and we can ask, objectively speaking, how do we improve each of those, and bring specialists in to have that conversation. But this is how decentralized governance works. You have to bring the community together. You have to have a conversation about what matters to us and what are we going to broadcast to the rest of the world. Wouldn't it be awesome if politicians did this? You look in the United States or Europe or other places, and they say, well, the opposition party is pure evil and literally a reincarnation of Hitler. And if you elect those people, they will destroy everything, murder all of you, and put you in death camps. And then the other side says, well, the opposition party is literally Joseph Stalin. And if you put those people into power, they will form gulags and murder you and drown your puppies and these things. and say, "Okay, that's great. I'm glad you guys really don't like each other, but at the end of the day, what are the KPIs of America? What should we care about?" When's the last time you had a politician come and say, "This is where education sits, and here's our plan to take it from this number to this number. This is where our national debt sits, and here's our plan to take it from this number to this number. This is where we sit in healthcare, as defined by this set of metrics, and here's where our peers sit, and here's what our plan to take it from this number to this number," et cetera, et cetera. They never have a KPI-driven conversation. Why? Because if they did, they'd be held accountable, because you'd be able to come back to them next quarter and say, "You promised me we'd go from number 40 to number 35." And they'd say, "Well, it's complicated. The index is wrong. It's politically biased, blah, blah, blah." That's why we have to come together as an ecosystem. If we want extreme accountability in the leadership of the protocol, we have to orient the leadership of the protocol in certain ways. The other thing is not everybody is good at everything. As we saw with Sebastian from DC Spark, he abstained with the Constitution vote. And he had a very good answer why he did that. He said, "There are certain things I am a domain expert in, and there are other things I'm not. So those things I don't know, I'm going to abstain. And the things I know really well, I'm going to have strong and passionate decisions about and vote on those things." So similarly, when you look at a KPI set, there are going to be people who are experts in one or two of those things, perhaps more, but not all of them. And so that allows them to zero in and help guide a strategy for that particular aspect, and then work with their colleagues to create a more holistic strategy across the board. So I think the time has come for Project One Page, and we can all come together as an ecosystem. I'd encourage DREPs. I'd encourage people in the statistics business to start talking to each other. IO is always available to brainstorm. People outside of the ecosystem can come on in if they want to win some prize money. And it will let it run until Rare Evo. When people come to Rare Evo, we can have a nice, vigorous demo day. People can showcase their one pager, build a little website and showcase all the stuff. Can have dummy data, but you have to at least have the categories right. And the hope is that we get to something that the ecosystem as a whole really likes, really enjoys. And then that will become the canonical set of statistics. And then every single interview I do, I'll bring up that one pager. I'll just have it there in the background. Maybe I'll even get a monitor, replace one of those boards I got right there. The board on the right, I never use. So I'll replace that with a big monitor that just has a permanent real-time tracking of that dashboard or something like that. And I'll say, "Okay, there we go. This is Cardano in a nutshell, the one pager." So you have governance, you have TVL, you have staking, you have block size, you have state size of the chain, you have transaction volume, you have the number of chain transactions, maybe become a meaningful transaction, the decentralization index, all kinds of stuff floating around. So we can take a look at that, and as an ecosystem, we can come to a consolidated set of things. And then at that point, we can talk about how do we win. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.